Wealth is rarely explained directly. In families that keep it across generations, the most important lessons are not taught formally. They are absorbed. They appear in tone, in what is emphasized, in what is ignored. A child grows up watching how decisions are made, how risks are discussed, how losses are handled, and long before adulthood, they understand something others don't even know exists. There is a difference between earning money and holding position. This video is about that difference, not theory, not motivation, but the quiet conditioning that shapes how wealthy families see the world, and why that conditioning outlives any single fortune. The first principle: wealthy families install spoken emphasis. Here is one idea that is never announced, but constantly reinforced. Money is temporary. Position is durable. In these families, income is treated as unstable by default. It can increase, disappear, or be replaced. Position, however, changes the rules. Position means ownership. It means access. It means being involved in decisions rather than reacting to them. So, from an early age, the questions sound different. Not, how much does this pay? But who controls it? What happens if it fails? Who benefits, even if nothing goes as planned? This is why job titles rarely impress wealthy families. They look beyond surface labels and focus on where influence actually sits. How this thinking is passed down, important for audience. These ideas are not delivered as lectures. They appear in conversation. At a dinner table, a parent casually mentions why selling an asset early was a mistake. Not because of the price, but because of the leverage it removed. In a car ride, a child hears why visibility brought attention that wasn't useful. No drama, no speeches, just repetition. That repetition shapes instinct. A different relationship with education. Formal education is not rejected in wealthy families. It is contextualized. Grades matter, but they are not confused with intelligence. Credentials are useful, but they are not mistaken for authority. Children are taught something quietly. Education opens doors. Judgment determines what happens after the door opens. This is why many highly educated people still feel powerless later in life. They were trained to perform, but not to evaluate. The second principle: spoken emphasis. Wealthy families think in layers, not lines. A decision is never evaluated in isolation. So the question is never simply, is this good or bad? It is, what does this lead to? What changes after this? Who gains quietly? What pressure does this create later? Children exposed to this way of thinking grow up calm under pressure, not because they are fearless, but because they are trained to see beyond the immediate moment. Panic usually comes from narrow vision. Time is treated differently. Time is not discussed as something abundant. There is no assumption of endless opportunity. Early exposure to responsibility is not about pressure. It is about familiarity. Responsibility that is normalized early does not feel heavy later. This is why wealthy families value early positioning more than late intensity. They understand that what is learned at 20 quietly compounds for decades. A structure over motivation. Important distinction. Motivation is not relied upon. Motivation fluctuates. Structure endures. Systems remove the need for inspiration. This is why discipline in wealthy environments looks effortless from the outside. It isn't effortless. It is designed. In families that hold power for a long time, silence is never accidental. It is taught early, not as secrecy, but as discipline. A child learns quickly that not every thought needs an audience. Not every success needs to be announced. Not every plan benefits from exposure. This is not about being hidden. It is about controlling information flow. Wealthy families understand something subtle. Attention is not neutral. Attention attracts interest. Interest attracts scrutiny. Scrutiny attracts pressure. And pressure forces decisions earlier than necessary. So they learn to stay quiet long enough to move without interference. Silence as a form of power. Spoken emphasis. Silence creates asymmetry. When others speak freely, reveal intentions, and seek validation. The silent observer gains an advantage without effort. In wealthy families, children are taught to listen more than they speak, especially around adults, negotiations, or unfamiliar environments. They learn to ask themselves, what do I gain by saying this? What do I lose? What changes if I say nothing? Most people speak to feel seen. Wealthy families speak to change outcomes. That difference alone separates influence from noise. Why visibility is often a liability. Public attention feels like success to most people. Likes, recognition, validation. But wealthy families see visibility as exposure. Exposure invites competition, imitation, regulation, unwanted attention. They understand that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful, just the most visible. This is why many wealthy families avoid unnecessary attention, even when they could easily attract it. They prefer to be known where it matters, invisible where it doesn't. Children raised in this environment grow comfortable operating without applause. They do not equate silence with insignificance. Privacy as strategy, not fear. Privacy is not about hiding wrongdoing. It is about preserving optionality. When plans are private, they can evolve. When intentions are private, they can change without explanation. When progress is private, it cannot be disrupted. Wealthy families teach children that once something is spoken publicly, it no longer belongs fully to you. It becomes subject to opinion, expectation, pressure. So they delay disclosure. They move first, explain later, if explanation is even necessary. Oversharing and the loss of leverage, important for audience. Oversharing feels honest. It feels open. It feels modern. But oversharing removes leverage. When others know your timeline, your urgency, your weaknesses, they gain negotiating power, whether they intend to or not. Wealthy families teach children to separate what is true from what is useful to reveal. This creates adults who are calm in negotiations, relationships, and business, because they are not emotionally exposed. Emotional control is taught, not assumed. Another quiet lesson appears early. Emotional expression is allowed. Emotional leakage is managed. Wealthy families do not suppress emotion. They contextualize it. Children are allowed to feel disappointment, frustration, even anger. But they are taught that decisions are not made in those states. This creates emotional delay, a pause between feeling and acting. That pause is where power lives. Most people react immediately. Wealthy families respond deliberately. The third principle, spoken emphasis. Power is preserved by restraint, not aggression. Aggression attracts resistance. Restraint attracts underestimation. Being underestimated is one of the safest positions a person can occupy. It lowers expectations. It reduces interference. It creates room to move quietly. Children raised this way are not in a hurry to prove anything, and they understand that proof is loud. Results are quiet. How this shapes adult behavior. As adults, These children do not argue publicly, do not explain unnecessarily, do not rush to be understood. They allow outcomes to speak. They are patient where others are impulsive. They are selective where others are expressive. This makes them appear calm, even detached. In reality, they are simply trained. Natural pause. End of part 2. By now, the pattern should be clear. What looks like confidence is often conditioning. What looks like luck is often restraint. What looks like mystery is often silence used correctly. In families that preserve wealth, failure is not feared the way most people fear it. Instability is. This is a distinction that changes everything. Failure is a single event. Instability is a pattern. Wealthy families understand that a loss can be survived, but instability destroys decision-making, reputation, and position over time. So they do not design life to avoid mistakes. They design it to absorb mistakes without collapse. This mindset is introduced early. A child learns that errors are expected, but recklessness is not. That risk is acceptable, but chaos is not. This creates a different relationship with danger. Risk is treated as inevitable, not heroic. Spoken emphasis. Most people are taught to either avoid risk or glorify it. Wealthy families do neither. They assume risk is unavoidable. So the question is never, should we take risk? It is, what kind of risk is survivable? What kind of risk compounds? What kind of risk ends the game? Children hear these distinctions long before they understand the full meaning. They learn that small, repeatable risks are acceptable. Large, irreversible risks are dangerous. Ego-driven risks are unacceptable. This conditioning creates adults who are not afraid of uncertainty, but deeply respectful of consequences. Why wealthy families fear sudden change. Sudden change forces reaction. Reaction removes control. Wealthy families prefer slow, predictable movement, even if it appears boring. They understand that stability creates space for thinking. This is why they avoid overextension, excessive leverage, rapid lifestyle inflation. They are not impressed by speed, and they are impressed by durability. Children raised in this environment learn patience without being told to be patient. They watch long timelines unfold. The quiet importance of margin. One of the least discussed principles is margin. Margin is space. Space in time. Space in finances. Space in commitments. Space in reputation. Wealthy families build margin deliberately. They leave room for delays, mistakes, unexpected events. This margin makes them appear calm during crises, not because they are unbothered, but because they are prepared. Children absorb this by observation. They notice that the household does not panic, that decisions are not rushed, that options exist. This creates emotional stability. The fourth principle, spoken emphasis. Wealthy families structure decisions so mistakes are survivable, and they assume errors will occur. So they ask, if this goes wrong, what breaks? What survives? What can be repaired? They rarely place everything on a single outcome. This is why they diversify not just assets, but exposure, reputation exposure, emotional exposure, public exposure. Children learn early that putting everything into one identity, one plan, or one role is dangerous. Why ego is managed. Early ego is expensive. It forces decisions for appearance rather than outcome. Wealthy families treat ego like a liability. Not something to destroy, but something to manage. Children are corrected quietly, not humiliated publicly. Praise is measured. Criticism is private. This teaches them that self-worth does not come from attention. As adults, they do not chase recognition. They chase positioning. Long-term thinking is normalized. Wealthy families do not speak in short horizons. They talk in years, not weeks, decades, not seasons. A child hears phrases like, "This doesn't matter right now. This will matter later. We're not in a hurry." This creates a sense of time depth. Urgency becomes contextual, not emotional. Most people rush because they feel behind. Wealthy families move slowly because they feel positioned. Why wealth is structured, not stored. Another quiet lesson appears here. Wealth is not kept in piles. It is placed in structures. Structures reduce exposure, clarify ownership, control outcomes. Children learn that money sitting still is vulnerable. Money inside systems is resilient. They see assets behaving differently depending on how they are structured. This creates an understanding that the same amount of money can produce very different outcomes. Structure matters more than size, failure without identity. Collapse. When something fails, it is not framed as personal collapse. It is framed as data. What did this teach us? What changes next time? This separation between identity and outcome is critical. Children learn that they are not their results. This creates resilience without arrogance. They are not broken by failure and not inflated by success. Natural pause. End of part 3. At this point, something important should be clear. Wealthy families do not avoid mistakes. They avoid fragile systems. They do not seek perfection. They seek survivability. By the time someone from a wealthy family reaches adulthood, very little of their behavior feels accidental. And the calm is trained. The patience is trained. The restraint is trained. What looks like confidence is usually familiarity. What looks like courage is often preparation. What looks like luck is almost always structure. They are not raised to win every moment. They are raised to stay in the game. That is the difference most people never see. Others chase intensity. Wealthy families design continuity. Others optimize for appearance. Wealthy families optimize for position. Others measure success by what is visible. Wealthy families measure it by what is protected. This is why wealth often disappears when the conditioning disappears. Money without structure is fragile. Opportunity without discipline evaporates. Power without restraint invites destruction. What wealthy families pass down is not just assets. It is judgment. When it is timing, it is silence. It is the ability to wait without weakening. Once you understand this, the world starts to look different. You stop asking how to make more money. You start asking where leverage actually sits. You stop chasing attention. You start protecting optionality. You stop trying to win fast. You start trying to remain positioned. That shift is quiet, but it changes everything. This is wealthy family secrets, where the rules are not shouted, the lessons are not rushed, and power is built slowly enough to last.